Shirley here with siriustalesmoon. And this is a Venus. Our Sun is separating from the conjunction with Venus. Venus is in Capricorn, midheaven, 7 degrees Capricorn, ascendant 11 degrees Aries. Mars in Capricorn applying to oppose Jupiter. I was talking about Lilith in Aries, and then I say it's the fire horse year. So I don't know too much about that type of mythology, so I'm going to learn with you and see what do I see that associates. But immediately I come to think about something. First of all, historically, and I thanks May for the historical women shorts. And historically, if I think about the Gilded Age, a lot of people compare this to the Gilded Age and the new rising, the new wealth. Okay, I made a joke about you think about the Kardashians are going to be old money in a couple of centuries, and that was pretty much the Gilded Age, because laugh or not, it was about new money. Back then it was new money, so people were celebrating lavishness. And mind you, it's not about morality, but in those situations, let's say, um, there were a lot of pressures that were not really favoring, how should I say, a fairness, equity, and so on and so forth. And or not, okay, but this is what we see from this perspective in history. And we basically changed the aristocracy. Okay, we shifted the aristocracy, and this was the birth of all the big companies that we see today. Whether it's the J.P. Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the wealth families around them, and we basically shifted into our modern society bit by bit. Now, in those days, the days of the Gilded Age, if a woman wanted freedom, okay, and this is funny because it's not something that a lot of people would understand in modern times, and I didn't either, because in those societies, people were raping one another as children, and everybody was raped, and so nobody had connection to the authentic sensuality as we've seen since Uranus going through Taurus, which is another layer of embodiment and another layer of embodiment and another layer of embodiment, completely shattering any spirit of matter notions of courtesan division. Back then, we didn't have that. So a woman that wanted freedom was a courtesan. Okay, and if she wanted to own her own house, own her own land, and so on and so forth, she was considered a courtesan because she wasn't a married woman. I think there was a baronet that only later married to be accepted into society, um, but there was a baronet that made her money and wealth being a courtesan. And this was because the courtesans had more relative financial freedom than women that were married. Now, since everybody was raped and nobody was carrying embodied sexuality, that was the closest to feminism. And again, this woman, she married someone that was both to be included into society, but also there were love feelings, as far as I understood. So she kind of picked her clients more and more as she came richer, and um, and this was something that people tried to reinstate by raping people. But I said that this war is going to be about sexual sovereignty, which means zero rape society. This is why it's such a big megalithic war. It's bigger than the world wars. Now, I talked about the fact that the fractured self um, in those societies basically negated the ability to have a woman archetype emerging. In fact, when I was in my 20s, around 2000, 6, 7, then when I was thinking about who I am, after I was approached by a screenwriter that wanted for me to help him to write the voice of a woman, I had to think myself, what is the voice of a woman? So I went as a filmmaker to um, who would be the women. Because it would be Marlene Dietrich and it would be Marilyn Monroe. And I listened to Marilyn Monroe singing, and she is, so beautiful. Her looks are both masculine and feminine features, and her body is lush, and she has the most beautiful natural voice. Seems to be comfortable with her sexuality, but she sounds bitter. And I'm like, what happens? Like, why she's sad? Why she's not happy? And I did not know anything about the rape and torture and trafficking. And then at first I thought, well, it's her story. Something happened to her. Then her mom tried to kill her, and so on and so forth. I did not know that that this is to basically, if Annika Lucas escaped being an elite sex slave child, then Marilyn Monroe didn't. And she had money, she had riches, um, but that was basically the story, which was, of course, intermingled with the politics and so on and so forth. And then there was Marlene Dietrich, which was bisexual, and um, she had intricate relations with the motherland, and was, of course, a famous singer, both expressing their own voice. And so I realized that I have no woman idol. And when I think about the way the support I got from my matrilineage, so my grandmother was the main breadwinner of the home, and my grandfather had a business around food, but she was working basically in a candy shop, in a chocolate shop, and without her, people did not know how to make the chocolate, because back then it was manual. And she was the breadwinner, but she lost her 2 feet. And the house didn't sustain, because when they died, then they had to sell it. So, which, by the way, wasn't registered. Not because my parents didn't want it to be registered, but because it was a mistake, and later my mom wouldn't receive assistance in housing because of that. And I was somewhat psychically tortured to be kept in a state where I wouldn't fight for that, I guess. Um, and and then my mom was like, okay, she married who she wanted to marry, and she divorced when she divorced. She brought a child out of love, and I was like, okay, those are good role models. Those are women that each and every in each and every way live their own truth. Okay, my grandmother, she was the main breadwinner. She liked to cook. She did what she liked. If she was out of the job, people didn't know how to make the chocolate actually taste good. And and my grandfather was having, also business with food, which was kind of like a vegetables and fruit shop. But they didn't let him run a business. The way I know my grandfather wasn't like a full-blown Epstein is because his business, they didn't let him succeed in business. Now, my mother was independent, and she said, don't open a business. It's too much bureaucracy to close it. Don't open it. But I did not get along in the corporate world because I didn't like the corruption. and so, um, and so now I tend to, when the Peter Rings thing is out, I'm like, okay, my grandfather didn't succeed in his business, even though he was selling food and it got him through the Holocaust. I mean, he would go out to bring food because he looked Irish, and then he could escape and so on. Um, but he wasn't all that much of a child molester, because if he was, he would have a successful business about food. Okay, and and this is how my family lost its generational wealth, because in the corporate structure, yes, my grandmother could be a very devoted worker, and um, and then die from diabetes and have her legs amputated after she stood on her feet the whole time. She loved her job. Everybody loved her there, but that was something that, and I was not able to even stand on my feet. I couldn't even be a waitress. I couldn't even, you know. So I didn't get along in the corporate world, and to have a business, I now know that I would need to rape children, which I didn't agree to do. And that's basically um, setting me up to be this full of potential person. Then I did a Saturday in academia because I went to academia. I was like, what can I do? And then actually, I thought that people that go to academia are not always the successful people because it's kind of like if I knew something about something, I would already done that. But then with filmmaking, I noticed that I have difficult to communicate, which is language acquisition to do with childhood trauma, relational trauma. And um, and so I couldn't have like my dreams come true, and I did not know what's going on in filmmaking. Okay, and I also liked the science. That my fascination with science was there, and then was reignited with filmmaking because we had to research and we had to make it look real. So I needed to learn the science of something when I write about it, and so um, was how I came to know about the world. Um, and I was singing, so the house always had to accommodate for that. And this is where um, the women archetypes were something that I had to develop. There was no there was good basis, but there was no woman voice. Eventually, I didn't wrote that screenplay with this person because I didn't find that woman voice that I could say is authentic to me. Um, there was something missing, whether it was about eroticism or the sexuality or relation, and and then of course I would run into all the things that are really, really, it's not about being deviant. It's about this is not happy and healthy and good for me. Um, and I said no to that repeatedly, which kind of left me unhoused in my own house, or and even had to around me to separate from having connection with my mom for 2 years because she didn't understand what I was going through. So not even having women goddesses, and when the women goddess is only to be worshipped as something of the public, as not even something that is her own, is something that makes, and I really felt that. I have Venus in Taurus next to Sedna, Diana next to my asteroid, next to my ascendant, um, and I really, really felt the lack of existence in my own self. And I think Uranus in Taurus and embodiment is about another layer of embodiment, another layer of embodiment, another layer of embodiment, and then more things come to the surface for, and these are really deep shadows for people to deal with. And then they tend to blame it on the woman. So let's take a look at the fire horse year, which is the fire horse. In Irish folklore, this flaming phantom horse carries off evil doers who are compelled to ride it, burning for all eternity. Eternal flame. The fire horse, last fire horse year was in 1966, this Chinese history, and it was one of the most dramatic years in Chinese history in which full blown calamity I don't know to read the Chinese letter. It's always looking such a fascinating. When I invented the handwriting, it was looking like a mixture of Chinese and Japanese that I did not even know to read my own handwriting language that I invented. But was visited upon the land, its people, its culture, and its thinkers. So, why is the fire horse bad luck? And this is Hinue Uma Superstitions, a publication based on 1935, lecture by scholar Hansei Kobayashi. Women born in fire horse year are strong-willed, surpassing men, devour seven husbands. I wasn't born on fire horse year. Devouring husband, devours seven husbands, bring ruin to their families, and cannot peacefully fulfill their duties as women. Falcon, I see a tendency in 2026. So, now why is it coming so strongly? When I think astrology, Uranus in Taurus, we had the trad wife and the feminist and the nature connected woman and the woman that gives her blood to the soil back. And people think that that's a biological hazard. Vulcan. Um, anyway, they don't know the biological hazard that comes when women are not allowed to be women. And then the oppression and repression. This is the year, Uranus Taurus is when we began to look at the pill as oppressive, what was a symbol of feminist liberation, because it was negating our sense of embodiment. And um, and this was also a time where we looked at commitment and our relationships in a way that is way less traditional than we would think, a fixed Venus sign would be. And this is where we had the erotic intelligence teachings, um, where we were questioning if somebody is, let's say, cheating or having an affair or attracted to other partners, doesn't have to be cheating. um, Uranus would look at it as, okay, what's in there, what else is in there, what is underneath that eroticism, not in a Plutonian Neptunian way, but more like, hey, what else is happening? Oh, they started singing, amazing. They liberate their voice. Like, hey, if they don't liberate their voice, how will they orgasm? I say, and this was also the year where women began to, okay, the womb, the what's down there was the lips, and so on, the lips, and so on. And this is where the architecture was like, okay, if people live in a apartments building, and everybody, women are encouraged to express themselves because it's more orgasmic. The orgasm is better, and so on. And so do men, and so even regardless of the genitals. Um, but this is where the architecture, which also associates with Uranus, begins to be like, okay, we need to accommodate for all this rewilding gardens um, and juxtaposed to that, we had all the technology that surveils people in their own porch and so on. So when I see the horse year, is that the amount of oppression on the feminine by the Nazi misogynic elite technology developers. Okay, gay or not, that began to create a clash of civilizations. and all the rules that were, prohibiting abortion, and a pandemic that was castrating the people, and all that together with Uranus in Taurus. Okay, and so the horse year is really about another archetype that comes here and says, whoa, whoa, wait a second. We're going to destroy the patriarchy if we want the world to exist. Now, what is the patriarchy? It's not the men. It's also the women that were going with that old order. A lot of women that, who knows when did they even have an orgasm in their life that was vocal, and they could be all into their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And some young chicken, two lesbian girls in the other building. What's happening? And now they do the weird rituals, so people would sometimes have the voice of a male, the voice of a woman. What is happening there? Is it the devil? And so there was a big desire to make that shut up rather than understand that the living situations of people was designed for silent slaves that know their place. What is to tell the person they should need to know the place? Is apartheid. It was not coming from white folks. It was the apartheid before apartheid. What happened after the Second World War? A lot of parents, either they were busy working, and so their children were growing out in the wild. They did not know, the old order died, so there was nothing. And then those that were in orders or treason cults were trying to predate on the people that were just growing natural, without misconceptions, without, um, it's not about ignorance, it's about innocence. And they were growing into an environment where, let's say, a neighbor does cooking and the child really likes the cooking. And people laugh at the fact that the child likes the cooking. Like, if that child didn't like the cooking, they would say, this is a bad child, this is a this is a that. But if they actually like the cooking and want more, they're like, that child is eating. Yes, with the Holocaust is over, children eat. And those humiliation rites that were done before the Holocaust were continuing to be done. And so children ran away to try to work at the workplace. But the boss is kind of like, even visibly looking like Hitler. So stressed. So, now, they did not know that the boss was probably ritually abused, and it would be nobody to explain to them because the people that knew were also in it, and the people that didn't, they were like, Okay. Well, I guess we need a job. I guess I don't know. They were trying to flee, whether it was from school or from work or they did not have this men here, women here, none of that. And so, or for the others, they were expected to know their place or to participate in certain things. But when they said no, they were considered aggressive and was sent to, boarding school or something. And then, who do they meet there? Who are the people that are abusing, even sexually, the people that are in boarding schools, the young boys? Sometimes even women. It's not that those women were evil monsters, it's that those women were also growing free, not really having. And then it comes to my generation. So either we were overprotected, or there were certain things that we were coming to liberate that we couldn't know, and or there were certain things that were happening that we noticed, and we were looking weird to people that didn't understand what was going on because there was an agenda to sexualize children. It was not by our parents, for most of us. Now, if I think about it, 1966, it came before 1967. We had chaos theory beginning to unfold in the early 60s. The Pluto-Uranus generation, opposing Saturn in either Aries or Pisces. Chiron was in Pisces, so it was a wound around religion. And this year we also have things to do with religion. Okay, Lilith going through Sagittarius, thoughts of 2030, the nodes going through Jupiter-ruled sign, which is Pisces, Jupiter in Cancer, exalted, so that people think of religion. Right now with Mars, there's a fight between those who are at the hierarchical points of society and the beliefs of the people. Year of movement, bold decisions, unexpected changes. A strong public investors' confidence tends to emerge. Let's see, year of the horse. So, year of the horse is after the snake year. 2025 was the snake year. The snake, basically, I saw full snake skin shed in a picture that a woman shared on social media right before the end of the year, in the last couple of days. It was the snake year. And I saw this, and then I began to see horses, and I was like, okay, horse, horse. I saw horse, everywhere horse, and I'm like, okay, I don't know, I'm ruled by Jupiter, but this is horse year. The next is goat year. 2024 was the dragon, and indeed I saw dragons that year. The rabbit was 2023. Tiger was 2022, which I think I also saw. Ox 2021. And the rat 2020. So, horse is confident, agreeable, and responsible, although they tend to dislike being reined by others. So again, revolutionary. Revolutionary in the sense of sovereignty. Okay, it's basically sovereignty. People would call it anarchy, but I think that sovereignty might be more compatible. Defeated, intelligent, adoring physical and mental exertion. They're decisive, but also easily swayed and impatient. Sounds like an Aries to me. Easily swayed, I don't know. Because decisive but easily swayed. It's kind of like the Aries Libra. To me, it sounds like kind of like the Aries Libra axis. But of course, I'm looking at it from perspective of what I know, and it's different culture. So I'm trying to connect it to what I know in the best sense I can make of it. So 2026 fire, and then we have the elements. 2014 was element wood, and 2026 was element fire. 2038, which is the Neptune ingress from Aries, this is why the Renaissance, from Aries to Taurus will be earth. So this is, I think, earth horse. And 1942 was water horse, 54 wood horse, 66 fire horse, 78 earth horse, 1990 metal horse, that was the Soviet Union fall, 2002 water horse, 2014 the Arab Spring wood horse, 2002 also something I don't remember, and 1930 metal horse. That was the aftermath of the Great Depression. It was into the Great Depression, was the metal. Yes. So this year, 2026, if I try to computate what I learned now with the rest of the things, it's kind of like the fire that burns through every oppressive thing. Now people really need to ask themselves, let's say it's men feeling oppressed by women, then how much of what they're feeling oppressed by is actually to do with men? For example, for 2 years I had no contact, I went no contact with my own mom, and that was the Me Too years. And it was nothing to do with her as a woman or with women, it was more to do with the internalization of rape culture based society. Basically, I was setting boundaries to the authority of my mom in my life, so much as to go no contact for 2 years for my own peace, not because of my mom. So not because of things to do with women. And so men that are angry at women, try to think, first of all, you angry at something that is actually real. Like what is the reason that one feels angry? And secondly, for example, in extortion cults, a lot of people are mad at the children, but the children have handlers. Okay? And to burn and to burn is to burn the fire of authority. Now, this is a very bad year for people that try to be authority over others. Okay? For example, when I have Uranus in the 10th house, in Sagittarius, mind you. So there was no, there was the fact that there was no authority over me was not about me being particularly rebellious or doing weird things. It was just like the traditional relation of parents expecting the children to respect them in a hierarchical way was not there. What was there is me respecting my parents or my mom, for that record, as a person. And so if there was the, but I'm your mother, that was not an argument with me. It would also mean that I wouldn't love her because she's my mother, but because I find her lovable as a person, which perhaps was something that was missing. I don't know, which was not, it's not with my parents, but um, and so the anything that the parents would expect from a child that would be of hierarchical sense was not there, and she got it immediately. She was like, okay, she had to explain any other authority figure that with Shirley, you don't punish, you don't nothing. If she does something that's a bit off or weird, you explain to her what was the weird thing, what was the thing that was not supposed to do, and why. And then you see she's gonna, and then if she understands the reason around it, then you will not have to explain to her twice. If she sees the reasoning behind that, she's not going to do it again, which is exactly what was countering every single fundamental core issue around any type of cult. Cults rely on people doing unreasonable things. So I wasn't born in Year of Fire. I think it was like a rat or something. I don't know. 1984. I don't know. Um, one of those rooster rats. I don't know. I don't think rooster. I think it's one of those small animals. Um, let's see, 1984. 1984, 1984, Chinese year, Chinese calendar, which would be wood rat. That's it. Um, Intelligent, adaptable, sharing traits with the first sign of the zodiac, of the Chinese zodiac, which is rat, charming and social. Okay, I guess it's what type of pig is 1984? So the water pig is 1st February. Oh, end date. So from 13 February 83 to 1 February 84 was water pig. No, but I was after. Yeah. Oh, so this water pig. This is water pig. I don't know. Either pig or rat. Anyway, I don't know what pigs do. Let's say pig. Pig year. Pig Chinese years. We'll also see what years were the pig years. And here's prediction for Year of the Pig, which is this year? No, a pig. I don't know, it's their zodiac for pig years. So pig years were 1933, 35, 47, 59, 71, 83. So it's not 2007, 2019, 1995, 2031. Okay. Good luck, wealth, honesty, enjoyment of life, sincere, genuine, studious, having warm heart, to sometimes indulgent. I think that describes you more. And I'm not so charming. I don't know. Um, so overall, this theme of it's not about define authority, it's just about sovereignty. And nobody having excess rights just because they are in higher rank, class, or even because they're a parent and no child, or something like that. And so, if it is about gender, then then I think this is what we also see, which is anything that had, anything that really wants to have traditional authority or any type of authority over others is having a bad year this year because it's not a, you see, if the previous year was the snake and we got to transform, transmute, alchemize, and now something tries to constrain it into subduing any parts of life existence, then it runs into a really bad year. Which now, why was 1996 bad for Chinese culture? Because it was trying to subdue women. And it affected the land, the people, the economy, and so on and so forth. Um, so, and this can also pertain to women. Women that go with the patriarchy. For example, before the Me Too, there were ladies that were told me, "Surely you are misogynist," because I didn't understand. Like, what I said, okay, why can't we have just like human rights? Why is this like feminism? And it was like l'homme that you talk about, l'homme rebel. L'homme is man, and I'm like, isn't like human? Yes, human. Homme is man. I'm like, okay, so feminism like also women. Okay. And there were many things I just didn't get. I didn't know that people, for example, would think that there were women that would be thought to be stupid because they're women. And I was like, it's such a dumb thing to believe. So I didn't think that people are that dumb. I guess I was assuming knowledge, but not knowledge that is scholarly and learned. It's kind of like common sense. I don't know. And this is also for example, in Gilded Age, because everybody was raped, and the way to have freedom was back then to be courtesan, which means to be lover and not spousey. And yeah, that's what it meant. In the beginning, they were trafficked, and then they tried to choose the people, so they were more lovers than spouses, and then they consolidated wealth that way. And basically, the courtesans were basically the ones that were really interested in the arts and the sciences. When Leonardo da Vinci needed to look for patronage, he would look for a woman that had a little bit more independent. Guess whether courtesan or not, I don't remember, um, but she was a little bit more independent um, because those were the people that would invest in Da Vinci. Any other woman patron, and so um, when we think about whether being a spousey or a single person, or I don't know, or any type of relation, then the natural thing, which is if somebody is really fascinated with the arts and the sciences and so on and so forth, and in life, I don't know, what is the usual things, I don't know, cooking or going to the garden, or then those are, or growing family, I don't know, I mean, then that's all a part of being an entire person. Any people that do not allow that are going to run into a very difficult year. Okay, for example, before the Me Too, I would run into feminist publications and I would say, is it because they want to create trauma and stress in society? Um, or is it actually so? The truth was way worse than those publications. It's just that I wasn't expressing my woman gender so much. And the more I began to, the more I realized that the whole world around me doesn't know what a woman is. The women, because I had not like no opinion. If a woman was dressed this way or that way, I was like, I wouldn't have an opinion on that. I was just like, okay, that's the way they express themselves. Um, and then those thoughts started to like, okay, people, there are people who think really unreasonable things in the world. It also affects accessibility to resources. Um, so tolerance becomes quite important, but people are not advocating for even tolerance. I'm like, okay, there's something very weird going on in society, and all the decision makers are expected to have a degree. So academia is basically a hierarchical institution that is based on religious institution or the patriarchy, the original patriarchy, not in the sense of even oppressing women, just as a hierarchical structure that was governed by men, um, that were in the clergy. There were nuns there, and then that was academic institution. Um, in fact, Da Vinci, I think, was main in beginning to separate because he did not agree with the methodology of the church, which my thesis was also re-exploring. It's the body-mind question, but it's also in epistemic eyes. And it's like, how do people look at whichever the ontological unit, how do they look at it, and why do they look at it in those epistemic eyes? Because I was looking at, what do we look at in philosophy of science and scientific revolutions? So, and my instructor was an MD. So that's how I got to the field. A fraction of a millisecond before COVID. um, so now I think I'm telling this story because many of us will have an inner awakening of our own inner fire. And we will also have the eurekas around why is it so? Just like, you know, let's say somebody, I don't know, either spiritually harasses someone and they always have to see someone as whore. And it's like, okay, it's really bugging, it's really annoying, I don't know. And let's say, unless you know that person, like, I did not know, I lived 5, 10 years as your bestie, not knowing that you have these type of beliefs around women, probably it had caused tremendous trauma to my life, energy, and sexuality to just spend time beside you. Simply because Not because of you, but because you view women in a certain way that is not allowing for women to be women. Oh, that's a eureka that if you tended to, maybe if you want to have family, I don't know, spousey, whatnot, maybe that's something that, you know, that could be completely a breakthrough where, hey, if you tended to that, changing that might even mean changing entire life. But for me, it's like, I don't need that in my energy, trying to blame me and be angry at me that whatever I do, that persistent anger simply because I am. I couldn't exist. It means that I had to flee to really exist as I am. Now, Lilith in Sagittarius is really exposing that. Oh, wait a second, they came from tradition where a goddess like Lilith would be considered a devil that kidnaps children. I'm like, well, she was just equal. She was just spiritually equal. She was just equal. Of course, she needs her own wealth, her own house, her own land. Now, what's underneath that? Underneath that is the notion that in a house, let's say the wife cooks and cleans, no matter the fact that they actually befriend the people that understanding the sciences, that they can have a conversation with them. But they still expect the family roles to be in a certain way, even though they were not dating even, okay? Like, and basically the wife is kind of working to serve the man. And now here's the thing. I'm not saying this can't work between two people, but you gotta find a compatible person for that. No, they came from society where they believe that all women need to be like that. Like, okay. That um, they were persecuted for many years. So they don't they make the yes, they blame the women for the Holocaust. Wann wird man hier verstehen? Now they can't cry about being friend zoned now. And so, and here is the thing. Now people are going to say, oh, they reject me. Nobody rejects you. First of all, maybe we're not into one another. But here's the thing. It's not about you. It's not about your value. It's kind of like you live in constant belief that women should be like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. You're attracted to women as nothing like that. You don't allow anything to live beside you. So none of those women that are the Lilith type could ever have a chance to be themselves around you. So of these many women, you would never meet a compatible partner. And you blame me for nothing. And you and anything, if it tells you no, it's a whore. If it is, even in the astral may have orgasm with someone that they thought it was even themselves, it's a whore. Now, this type of, with Uranus at the end of Taurus and Lilith in Sag, this type of patterns are really being revealed. And they're also being revealed for the women that were like, okay, exploring their sexuality. I don't know, learning about, oh, this costume was for the jade egg, and this costume was from this, and this costume was from that, and this talisman works like this, and so on and so forth. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful, so lovely. So, and then it comes to raising a family, so people think about, okay, how do we consolidate wealth? Let's look at how others did that. Now, I had that when I was looking at entrepreneurship, because I was looking at entrepreneurship and I was looking at entrepreneurs. How do billionaires think? How do billionaires operate? Now, some things are good. I didn't know they were all Epsteining. I learned that during my Neptune Square, where I was somewhat by wing people of social engineering was introduced to those billionaires. And I was like, what are they doing for fun? Wait a second. It's not for fun. They have to do that to be a part of. Can they get outside it? They're born into that. With that. Well, you don't. I mean, you don't have to date. I wasn't looking to date a billionaire. I mean, it was just anybody that would. You're the type of woman that encourages people to live their dreams and their passions and get connected to their true selves. And yes, would that mean that they would grow, like their life mission? Their yes, you're the type of women men grow next to. Yes, okay, they would have to encounter those Epstein rings. So even if I dated like any person, like yes, yes, it's not about how rich they are, because I wasn't looking to date. Like I was just living my life, doing astrology and stuff. So how do we change that? That okay now. And even these women that grew up into certain lineage and were seeking to be free from those lineages, sometimes the spouse would be like, well, that woman over there, is she gonna do me the same troubles that this young woman does to me? 7 times more. Seven. Okay, I love my wife. Now, this is because underneath that has affected all the biggest taboos in our lives, which is shit fuck traumatic. All of these cases, all of these people with all of these stupidities are also people that are self-aware, intelligent, benevolent, loving, and so on and so forth. And what I feel for this either fire horse or this fire energy is the burning off of those type of artificial authorities. Now, monotheism. Now, with your, I'm born in Uranus and Sag, so Uranus and Sag can be kind of like detached as well, but it's kind of like, okay, then monotheism has to go. No, 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 no. Peter Rains. Okay.